When emergency management tells you to get ready for hurricane season early, they're not just saying that, they have to do it themselves. As a matter of fact, we spoke to the emergency management chiefs and directors in Manatee, Sarasota, and Charlotte counties to find out that some of them were preparing for hurricane season as early as January of this year. The state of Florida holds an annual exercise and allows every county to pick a day or two to organize local agencies and partners for this yearly event.
Since January, we've actually been organizing and planning for today's exercise.
And something else happened in January. The tornado touchdown in Siesta Key. Sarasota County Emergency Management Chief Ed McCrane partly considered that a warm-up for hurricane season.
That caused us to activate the Emergency Operations Center at 3 o'clock in the morning, bring in key players to go through our process of responding and of providing assistance to the public. So that kind of gave everybody a sense of, wow, this was a small event compared to what a hurricane could be.
Part of emergency management's job, of course, is to prepare the public. Florida is unique, however, due to the constant influx of people moving into the state. And why would that make a difference? Well, Charlotte County Emergency Management Director Wayne Saladay says,
that's a whole new batch of folks that have to be educated. And by and large, they're from the Midwest. You know, they don't come here from New England, New York. Some do, but the majority of our folks come from the Midwest. And they're not schooled in hurricanes. And the first thing they do is talk to their neighbors and want to know when the last storm was. And the neighbor might have been here 8-10 years and says, well, there's been nothing since we've been here.
One of the keys to all emergency management's job is to give the community information far in advance using TV, radio, and social media. Another is learning from other states' experiences.
What we do is we look at other areas that were hit, like Sandy, the northeast coast, and we look at lessons learned. What did they go through? How did they prepare? What went well?
Then, when hurricane season starts, it's not just our weather team or the NWS meteorologists tracking the storm.
We start tracking these things when they come off the coast of Africa. We look at the long-range models. We certainly look at the upper atmospheric steering flow. We look at water temperatures.
We start at least 120 hours out with different checklists and timelines of everything that has to transpire.
120 hours, so that's 5 days. Once a storm can potentially threaten the Suncoast within 48 hours, the National Hurricane Center will issue a hurricane watch. And at that point, emergency management will aid those with special needs who have registered within the county.
Now, these are people that might be transportation dependent, they might be oxygen dependent and have to be in a facility that has alternative power should the electricity go out. We went 13 days without electricity following Hurricane Charlie.
Hermes says timing is everything. The goal is to get everyone safe and sound before winds in the area reach 45 miles per hour.
45 is one of the big keys because when you look at large paneled vehicles, tractor trailers, ambulances, and those types of vehicles, they have a tendency to get tipped over if the wind gust hits them broadside.
Once the storm is overhead, these guys, as you'd probably expect, will be working long hours.
We have a major hurricane that devastates the community. We go on 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off. I have a backup incident manager. So does everybody on my team.
Well, I'm never home. Once we get into storm mode, I'm staying at the Emergency Operations Center, most likely from probably 36 hours, on in.
After the storm has moved through the area, it's time for cleanup, coordinating with groups like the Red Cross or Salvation Army to feed affected residents, and setting up points to distribute food and water. Whether it's the only landfalling hurricane of the season or not, emergency management will assess what went right and wrong to prepare for the next landfall. And for the sake of the community, they always hope that landfall won't come soon.
One of the most common misconceptions when it comes to hurricanes is that winds is the most dangerous and most deadly part of a hurricane. Actually, it's about the storm surge, all about the water. That is the most deadly and most devastating part of a hurricane. Well, at the National Weather Service in Tampa Bay, they have some new technology when it comes to storm surge that they will have this coming hurricane season. Rick Davis, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Ruskin, says a new experimental tool by the National Hurricane Center will help the National Weather Service come up with more accurate data to help keep you safe.
And we've made new forecasting tools to help the emergency managers and the general public when it comes to storm surge. So we have storm surge inundation graphics. We can issue storm surge warnings, which let people know if they are in low-lying areas that they are at life-threatening risk for storm surge. So we're able to produce those watches, warnings, and advisories, get those to the general public and our emergency managers to help protection of life and property.
With this new tool, it will be easier to communicate with local emergency management systems about the potential risks and what needs to be done.
So through the research that we've done with them, we've realized that they have specific levels that are triggers that let them know if we say 6 feet of storm surge, what evacuation zones that they need to call. So when we're doing our forecast, we know what levels to forecast for that helps them make their decisions better.
What's the difference between a tsunami and a storm surge?
It can kind of sound like a tsunami in that it comes in waves, that you will have waves in which the storm surge, you have different waves coming across the shoreline. But a tsunami is based upon earthquakes or tectonic plates, whereas storm surge is exactly in the name, storm, associated with only a hurricane or some major cyclone that comes in over the water.
At the National Hurricane Center, they've done a lot of research on storm surge because since 2004, 2005, storm surge has produced the most deaths in relationship to tropical systems.
And in many stories that I've covered throughout the years, when I interview people that have been through flood and storm damage, they say that the water rose too fast, that they weren't able to get out in time. How fast can these waters travel?
It depends upon, again, the strength and speed of the storm that's coming in and what the shoreline is shaped like.
We've had a lot stronger storms that impact storm surge vulnerable areas. The north central Gulf Coast, for instance, is very susceptible to storm surge. We've had very large storms that are producing that. So what we tell people is they need to run from the water and hide from the wind. So most people know if they live on the beaches or in a high-rise condo on the beaches to evacuate to an inland location. But a lot of people weren't aware of the dangers of storm surge flooding, and that's why we've had so many deaths, and that's why the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service have dedicated so much time and effort into the storm surge, the newest storm surge information.
Davis says that even though you're not in a flood zone, you still might run into some trouble.
One thing that people are staying in areas that they believe are safe, and we've tried to communicate information, and sometimes people adhere to those watches and warnings, and sometimes they have a false sense of security. One thing we've learned because of the research is you don't necessarily have to be at the coast to be impacted by storm surge. If you live in a river or a bay that's very far north or inland of a storm, you can be impacted. In the Sarasota area, it's a good, you can be either, you don't have to be at the beach on Siesta Key, you can be in downtown Sarasota or any river or canal that's further inland, several miles inland, and they can be impacted by storm surge as well.
Make sure you consult local emergency management officials for information on the risk of storm surge flooding within your area.
Still ahead, we'll take a look at what the local National Weather Service office is thinking about this upcoming hurricane season. After this short break, stay with us.